Well, howdy everyone. Welcome to today's research-informed defensive lesson here at Active Self-Protection. We are glad that you've joined us. I am your host, John Correa.
And I'm your co-host, Neil Widener.
Download the ASP Unlimited app for all the content you love from Active Self-Protection and more with no interference from YouTube. No ads, no age gates, exclusive videos, seminars, classes, and more on iOS, Android, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Android TV. Hit the link in the description or download ASP Unlimited from your app store today.
This one is in Minas Gerais, Brazil. This woman's just gotten off her motorcycle, sees a guy coming to rob her of that bike, tries to toss her key on the other side of a gate, doesn't get far enough, and so he's gonna grab that key, and now she's gonna fight him for it. So he's gonna try to get on her bike, and she's not having it. She is going to then jersey the guy like it's time for a hockey fight. Well, he gets out of his sweatshirt here, and he's trying to get the key in the bike, and she's not having it, gets on behind him, and now she goes the scene from Blazing Saddles. You brute, you mean and nasty brute. And he's not able to get the stupid bike running. And so eventually she's gonna push him off, and he tosses her around like a bit of a rag doll there, but she's not done and doesn't give up, sloughs her backpack, and off this guy runs. You can see a second person did show up there at the last minute and maybe, persuaded him that he wasn't gonna win this fight. She did win this fight. Let's think about lessons. So Neil, what's the funniest nickname that you've heard somebody call me in the comments?
Oh, geez, caught me off guard with that one. There's a ton of them.
Ouch, hurtful.
Yeah, the Lord Farquaad one just makes me smile every time. Now, after the 700th time, I don't smile as often, but that one made me giggle pretty good when I first saw it. So.
Better than Jack Black, I guess.
Yeah, that one's kind of old. The Joker is a real common one. Everybody thinks you look like the Joker. I don't see it. I didn't think you were that funny, but it's a big one.
Okay, so we've heard all those. Find new ones. Just get something novel, would you? Dang, Neil, I just want to start by giving mad props to this lady. She is a fighter and a warrior, and it starts with the fact that she's paying attention to her world that wins her this fight.
Her eyes were up. She wasn't looking at her phone. She was focusing on what was going on in her surroundings. So you can see that she noticed this guy well before he got there. Now, maybe she could have seen him a little bit sooner. However, who knows if he came out from around a corner or whatever. But yeah, mad props to this gal for just staying in the fight.
I really think this is key, right? You notice she's probably waiting for somebody to buzz her into this building or inside of the security gate, but she's not focused on the door. She's focused outside of that. She's turned away from that door, looking to see what's going on in her world. That's called being curious. You don't have to be paranoid in order to see what's going on in your world. You can be curious and just see, and she did that incredibly well. Now, of course, living in Minas Gerais in Brazil, in a densely populated urban area like that, you want to pay attention to your world. That kind of comes naturally to those folks because otherwise you get got, and you get got an awful lot. And she did not. So just remember, I don't even care where you live. Just be curious of your world. Pay attention, right? That attention buys you time, and time buys you options. Now, I do think it's kind of interesting that her kind of response here when she sees this potential threat coming is to try to ditch the valuable. So if I get rid of the key, he can't steal my motorcycle. And that's an interesting strategy. It didn't work very well for her, Neil, but we have seen that many times in Central and South America, that people kind of try this to get rid of the key and like toss their valuables into a safe place so that they can't get got. Although I do worry there about that pissing bad guys off and them trying to beat you up in reprisal.
I think that's there's a 50-50 option here, plan here that, potentially it does mean if you throw the keys or your cell phone or whatever over a fence or up on a roof or whatever, that means the bad guys can't get to it. But now you're alone with the bad guys. And now it's still going to be a fight. The fact that you keep your motorcycle or keep your phone or whatever it was that you decided to throw away, may not be the greatest thing if you're laying there bleeding to death or something along those lines as well. So I like having a plan, but understand that there's still probably going to be a fight because you're still standing there on the street with the bad guy.
Now, I think people do it there because it tends to work there, and guys are just going to then roll off and try to find another victim. And maybe, again, cultural context dictates, right? For me and for mine, I would think I don't want to fight. Okay, if that gets rid of them and they go off in another way, great. But I would certainly want to be kind of prepared here to continue on, or prepared to defend myself. And I think, this is a kind of strong arm robbery here. So is this an armed robbery? No, the guy doesn't have a firearm or a weapon of any kind that we get to see. So it'd be considered a strong armed robbery, maybe a carjacking. You could consider it as well. He's trying to steal her vehicle. Now, I do love her attitude. She's just in this fight to win it. And this guy does get a hold because he ends up being a 17-year-old kid, right? But still, 17 years old, he's got some strength. But she's just not willing to lose here. And one of the things that we see this all the time is the attitude wins. And attitude is the number one indicator. And yes, are skills important? For sure. Is a plan important? Yes. But none of it overwhelms an attitude that says, I will not be a victim. And Neil, this lady had it like big time.
Yeah, she was not going to give up. I'm sure that she worked a ton of hours and worked really hard to get that motorcycle. And, for her, that's her thing and she's going to keep it. And just that attitude of I'm in the fight, I'm going to stay in the fight, and he's going to pay full retail for this motorcycle really shows a great attitude. And it was very refreshing to see somebody stay in the fight like this.
Yeah, and does she have the right to stop him from stealing her motorcycle? Absolutely yes. Again, this is a strong arm robbery. So, Texas is the only state that I'm aware of that an unarmed robbery that would justify the use of deadly force. Though I think you could argue that since she's kind of trying to get on the bike with him, that this is a carjacking, and therefore that is a violent felony against the person. And so in other states, I can make the argument as well. But again, these are one of those kind of can I versus should I versus must I. And this shows us that, hey, just having good empty-handed skills is important. Even a good OC spray here, I think, would have dissuaded this guy significantly and changed the course of events. But also, man, her attitude is just king, and her willingness to fight, because these bad guys generally aren't looking for fights. So I do think here, getting on the back of the bike and then trying to kind of beat on him is not maybe the best strategy here. I love her heart. I don't want to give her any grief, and I'm really reticent. Here, again, we could probably call this a carjacking. So would something like a rear naked choke be justified? I'd make the argument that it is, though a zealous DA might think otherwise, and we could have some problems with it and really have to work to persuade them. But at the very least, like a face crank or something like that from behind, if she knows how to start moving this guy's head around, she a little bit more skills would have made this a little more effective. But props again for her attitude, bro.
Again, we talk about, if you control the head, you control the body. And if she could have controlled his head in this case, she may have got him off the bike a little bit faster. The other thing that may have been a missed opportunity, I don't know, when he threw her down and she went down with his hoodie, she was laying right beside her helmet. And if she had picked up that helmet and come up and tossed that into the side of his head at a pretty good clip, again, an overzealous DA may look at that as you using deadly force now. However, he is in the act of trying to steal her stuff, so her fighting back for it isn't going to be a problem. And she did have one weapon of opportunity there that she may have missed. However, I don't want to be hard on her either, because my goodness, she stayed in the fight. I just would have liked to have seen her pick that thing up and being that guy in the melon.
Yeah, or man, when she's got behind here, if she knows how to throw a good punch, if she knows how to throw a hook here and just throws even an open-handed slap into that guy's ear, she is going to absolutely ring his bell. Even knowing how to kidney punch somebody and just jackrabbit punching this guy rather than kind of beating on his traps like that aren't going to hurt him very much, I think would have really changed the tenor of this fight and made it a much more of a flawless victory on her part. But even with him kind of throwing her around like a rag doll, I just want to note, attitude wins the day. Now, I know there's going to be some people that are going to show up and go, yeah, well, it was a man who showed up that really fought this guy off. First of all, I don't know if that's a man or not, because you can't tell who that person is. Second of all, she's the one who fought him off, but he decided, my guess is, I'm not beating this one girl by myself, let alone with a second human involved. I'm certainly not going to win. So he hecked off. So I would say, Neil, she won a pretty flawless victory here.
Yeah, she stayed in the fight. She kept a good attitude. She had a plan of, I am not giving up. The one thing that I would tell folks is, you have to have at least a line somewhere in the sand where if he had got that bike started and started to move, at that point, I'd be recommending bail off before he's at 40 miles an hour so you don't hurt yourself. But man, she stayed in the fight. She made him do everything he possibly could and taught him a pretty good lesson lesson. And and the second person coming in, of course, bad guys are looking for an easy target. They're not looking for a 2-on-1 fight of any kind. And in this case, I was just tickled to see this girl cover her asp.
So Neil, tell folks some of the exclusives that are only in the Active Self-Protection Unlimited app.
Oh man, there's a ton of stuff there. The React Ripple is my favorite because that's my show.
That's basically John Reed's mean tweets.
Yeah, so that one's a really fun one because you don't have any prep of what we're going to talk about, and then you have to respond to comments. It's a pretty fun one. But we also have the first watches. We've got a few lessons, like today's lessons, that are exclusive. They're a little too hot for YouTube, so we don't put them here, but we put them over there. So there's that kind of stuff. And
we also do the monthly online seminars.
The online seminar, and then the real big one is all of the online classes. I think we're up to 19 classes, full-length firearms classes that are there from Tim Herron, those kind of folks, the high-end guys, Riley Bowman. Of course, our classes on there as well. And there's a ton of stuff over there. So I'd say there's probably 200 pieces of content there that are app exclusive that you can't get anywhere else.